And we are back with the Brett Snodgrass podcast. I'm with Brian Williams out of Dallas, Texas. Hey, Brian.
Brett, what's going on, man? Always good to talk to you.
You too, man. It's just, I know we've had a lot of conversations over the last few weeks, a lot of personal conversations, honestly, haven't we?
True.
About life, about being a dad, being a husband, and being an entrepreneur, and the hard charging rhinos that we are. How to
Oh
slow
man.
down a little bit.
All
Um,
gas, no brakes, baby.
Definitely. Well, it's been awesome, man. I just want to have you on this podcast because I respect you as an entrepreneur, as a man, as a dad, husband, and I just think you just bring so much value, and you communicate really well. That's probably why you're a professional communicator. So,
I appreciate it, man.
yeah, no problem. Well, Brian Williams, guys, if you guys don't know Brian, I want to kind of give Brian's highlight reel. So number one, Brian was in the 20 years serving in the Silicon Valley in the tech industry, and then he started his own firm, Perspectivity, and they really focus on communication and sales. And he's been in front of some of the top businesses out there like AT&T, Altran, and Cisco, to name just a few. So he's been serving these businesses and other businesses in their sales departments over the last 8 years. He is a husband, father of four, comes out of Dallas, Texas. And one really cool story about Brian is he did Toastmasters for a long time and was on the semifinals, world Toastmaster competition, right?
Exactly.
Brian, that's cool, man. That's why I kind
Thank
of
you.
I enjoy public speaking, and I know you're a professional speaker, and that's why we kind of relate. And you do amazing. So you've been kind of talking to me about that a little bit,
hmm
and I just want to kind of like dive into a little bit about your story, Brian. So, and really just kind of you went from the corporate world to the entrepreneurial world 8 years ago. Started your own business called Perspectivity. So why did you do that? Why did you leave the corporate world and start your own business?
Number one, the way I did it was the dumbest way to ever do it. So for all of you listening, don't do what I did. I'm going to explain what I did, and you make sure you never do it this way. All right. So, so I spent 20 years there, and I always, I think what happened, I like adventure and change, right? And so some companies, I was in a larger, so I was in some startups and some larger companies, and the bigger firms, right? They kind of lock you into a program and a game plan, and you just have to execute that game plan. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity for creativity and entrepreneurial spirit. And so I remember my wife came by. I was working from home at the time, and my wife came by the office and was like, "What happened to you?" It's like, "What do you mean? I'm just working." No, no, no. You're not the same. Like you don't have that fire, that passion. Like you're just kind of going through the motions. And I hate being described that way. And so I knew I was in trouble. But what I noticed was while we were doing what we were doing, I was in about 13 different countries, and I just noticed that we're in Silicon Valley, some of the best technologies and some of the smartest people on the planet. But I would see product A outsell product B, but product B actually had better technology and better engineering. And it would really bother me like, well, how does product A win with that weak, software architecture? Uh, and product B has much better architecture, much better design engineering, but it's losing. And I learned the sales pitch and the sales presentation of product A was better, right? And so that then began to pique my curiosity, and I began to say to myself, I'm spending all my time and energy on the R&D side of the house because I was writing software at the time, and then I realized it's the sales pitch, it's the sales communication skills that allows one product to beat another. And so that's when I left, went to marketing and then sales, and then eventually would leave corporate, start this company, make a U-turn, and turn around and go help them do the same thing.
Mm, that's awesome. Yeah, it is a lot about sales and marketing when it comes to just a presentation, which I think that's really what you focus. You help businesses give just an amazing presentation, and sometimes it's just those small little tweaks about communication. It's I don't know. I mean, what's some of the biggest things? I know we're not going to dive too much into your actual business, and I want to really kind of pinpoint to being an entrepreneur, being in all those different things, and some of the things that you went through the last couple of months. But when it comes to actually presentations, and when I say presentation, it doesn't always have to be, you're on a stage somewhere giving a PowerPoint presentation. This could be in someone's living room. I'm in the real
Yep.
estate industry, so
Mm-hmm.
it could be, how do you present your offer to buy their
Mm-hmm.
home, right? So what are some of the key tips that you were seeing it lacks in people's presentation skills?
Good question. And it really bothered me. And I heard a preacher once say, whatever, when something's happening and it really bothers you and everyone else is just looking like it's normal, then that's probably your calling, right?
Mm,
So I would be watching these pitches and at different trade shows and things going, man, why did they do it? They could have said that. Or why did they use that image? They could have, I'm always doing that. I was doing it a lot. So what I learned in the process was actually I had two coaches when I was pursuing the world championships, which really, man, they really just changed my perspective and helped me see the science and I began to respect the craft of communication. But I came up with something called the pie principle. I think these three things are key when we are communicating, especially in a business or a sales setting. The first P is, or the first letter P is to be persuasive. Like it changing getting an adult to change their mind about something is difficult to do. Don't underestimate, right? I think we underestimate how difficult it is to get someone to be locked in this direction, and you through the course of a conversation get them to completely shift to another direction, a different way of thinking.
mhm.
So having those persuasive conversation skills I think are key. And then I is provide insight instead of information, because there's so much information out there. If the only thing you're bringing is information, that's kind of a waste of time, because everyone has access to that same information. But if you can take that information and extract insight from it, like as a result of having this information, here are three things that I see that may be impacting your business. Now they lean in, they want to know what that is. And to me, that's where your expertise comes in, right? When you can extrapolate insight from the information and then share that with other people. And then E is just empathy. Man, I can't tell you how many people just lack empathy, just listening and caring about the other person, and sharing that empathy, knowing how to connect emotionally with another person. I don't care if you just met them, it doesn't matter. I tend to connect with people's pain pretty easily, because we're all shaped by our life experiences. But I noticed that it's difficult for some people to express empathy for someone that they don't know, or even they may know them and they're going through some troubled time, because there's millions of people struggling this year in one way or another. So I think empathy is much more important now than it has ever been before. And I think your ability to emotionally connect with another person is going to be key. I think for throughout all of next year, I think that's going to be the key differentiator, because we all know we buy from people we like, know, and trust.
Hmm.
And empathy increases that like, know, trust factor.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talk a lot about persuasiveness and insight. I want to hit on empathy a little bit more. Some people, in my opinion, they either have empathy or they don't. Maybe some people agree with that or not. Do you think that empathy can be learned? Is it something that you learn throughout your life? Do you draw off of your own experiences? Where, how do you get better at being empathetic?
And that's a tough one. And it could be really tough, because that's a hard shift. I just mentioned it's hard to get adults to change their position, right? And I think this is an area, especially for this audience, right? Hard driving, type A or high D on the disc profile, right? Entrepreneurs, tough crowd when it comes to empathy in a lot of cases, not all. But I definitely believe you could change. I believe in neuroplasticity. The brain has the ability to change in any area if you give it permission to do so. And of course, there's a right way to do that. But yes, I totally believe you can become more empathetic. I mean, in one way, I think that people become more empathetic is they go through something personally, right? People who have been through some form of trauma, hard time, some major failure, right? Afterwards they tend to be more empathetic to other people because they've been hurt. And people who haven't been through a lot of pain can be some of the least empathetic people. They just think, well, just get back on the horse and do it again. Now, they've never fallen off a horse before, but they're just going to tell you to just get back on and ride again because they don't really understand the depth of the pain that another person might be going through. But simply put, I do think you can learn how to do it. I don't think it's easy, but I do think you can definitely learn how to become more empathetic. I mean, I'm one of those, I've gone through that transformation myself.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about that. How did you have pain in your life? Did you, I don't know, recently? Just kind of talk to us about what are some things that helped you gain perspective and empathy and build that emotional bond with other people.
I think, I think because of my whole dad story, how he left when I was a kid, and I always struggled with, does he love me? Does he care? Am I worth anything? Do I have any value? Am I important? Am I good enough? I would always ask myself these questions. And I think because of that, I had a lot of empathy towards people, who may have some sort of struggle, because I can relate to that kind of self-doubt and fear maybe. But about maybe 3 months ago now, I had another incident that occurred that has dramatically increased my empathy, because when you go through these hard moments, and in this particular scenario, I was alone 100% of the time, and it made it. I didn't think about it until later. That's what made it really difficult. Is how because of Corona and different things, there was no one there with me. I had to ride that entire journey by myself, and I think that probably increased my empathy even more so.
Mm. So we didn't really talk much about your dad. I know that you actually gave a talk. One of your kind of your signature talk at Toastmasters was titled "God Don't Make No Junk," which I love the words on that. But was a lot of that talk stemming from your dad? That he had left, and then you felt a lot of self-doubt, and you felt like junk, and until you had that relationship with your Heavenly Father. Is that where that stemmed? So obviously one of the empathetic things that you can really relate to is people that either don't have a dad or don't have parents or don't have a great relationship with them too, right?
Yeah, or just may not have great relationships, period. So for example, I go to the gym, this local gym, and they just built them like 2 years ago, these massive gyms. And there was one they built for senior citizens. Well, because of COVID, that one got shut down.
Mm.
And ours is kind of limited, open on a limited basis. Anyway, one of the senior citizens from that other facility now comes to our gym. And man, she was telling me the other day, it's been like maybe 6 weeks since I've met her now. Her name's Sandra. And she said, I see people when I come here in the morning, and because her husband died like 8 years ago or so, she said she won't talk to another human or see another person until she comes back to the gym the next morning. And I
Wow.
was thinking, man, that is deep in pain.
Yeah.
And so, man, every time I see her, man, it was one day I was late and I was trying to get somewhere, and I saw her in the corner of my eye, and I was like, man, if I say hi, she's going to want to talk. And so I tried to run out, and I just couldn't do it. Holy Spirit went, get your butt back in there. So I turned around, and we went over there, man. And what happened is two of her other friends came over, all older, and all three of them were talking this morning about their husbands dying and how much they miss and how they were married. And when one dies, it's literally like half of you gets ripped away. And I had just been arguing with my wife the night before, man. And so
Mm.
just listening to their story was just really impactful. But I just empathize with them because they don't have people to talk to. And so although I'm in a very different stage of my life than they are, but I just always try to find time to just talk and hang out because I just kind of get what it might be like.
Yeah, definitely. I had a instance. My wife's sister came over to visit us, and she is single. She's in her low 40s and no kids. and sometimes I complain about our house is so crazy. Like it's the Snodgrass crazy house because I have very young kids and my wife, and it's just nonstop all the time, pedal to the metal in business and in my personal life. And so she comes and visits, and I just feel for her because she really does desire to be married. She really does
Mm,
desire to have children. And she was visiting us and seeing all the craziness. But then when she left, I was just thinking about her, driving home to not be with a family,
mm,
and how
mm.
much and I can empathize with her. So
Sure.
definitely, that's a key component, guys. So if you're tuning in, just gain clarity, build from your own experiences with empathy, and for sure, Brian, I want to just talk about the last few months. I know we've had some conversations about kind of what's been going on, and I want to dive into, I guess, something that entrepreneurs don't really talk much about, but we feel it, right? And a lot of times, if you're like me, we tend to stuff things, and we don't really know what's going on. We feel stressed a lot of the time. We feel a lot of pressure, but we don't talk about it a lot because,
Mhm.
right, if you look at social media or you read a lot of books, a lot of people say, well, just suck it up, shake it off, push through it, work harder, right? No sleep is good, working many, many hours and just pushing through, and scaling and bigger is always better. And we get a lot of those messages, especially in today, right? We wear shirts about it and we celebrate it like I never sleep, right? I work so hard. I'm an animal. I'm a beast, and we hear all that, um, but sometimes something else is going on inside of us, and this is one of the reasons why I want to have you on the show. Is I've experienced this in the past few years,
Mm.
and I know that you have too. So just kind of share what happened a few months ago, and let's open up about that.
I think I was actually thinking about this, like, why did I kind of have this hit this wall, if you will, this year? Because I've been doing this, living like this for like years, right? With at least I'm thinking with no problems, but I think they were just kind of creeping up on me. But I think when you add uh, COVID, because the company was severely impacted when COVID, because we did 100% of our business on site at the client site, and then all of that was like wiped off the books, and so that was a huge impact because we had to like change the company overnight. And then when the George Floyd incident happened, I'm obviously African American. I got three boys who are like between 6'2" and 6'4", and they all work out and are athletic and all that. And so they all have dreads, and so they kind of fit the profile, if you will. If you don't know them, they not knowing they grew up in a Christian household in suburban America, but so I didn't realize how much I was worrying about them. And then my daughter ended up getting COVID, and then our businesses is turning around overnight. And then this election was, and I was asked to speak on certain panels on this whole racial bias in the workplace kind of thing, and diversity inclusion. And I had no idea I was carrying all this stress and anxiety just kind of building up like slowly over time. And I wasn't sleeping right. Um, and I've never been a stress eater before. And I caught myself doing that also. And so ultimately, but I didn't really sense, something was wrong. I mean, when I stress, I clench my jaw, my teeth. So that's kind of a sign, but I usually just keep plying. It just makes no sense at all. It's really just chaotic to live like that. But I would just keep pressing through, despite all of these signs. But the body, as resilient and as brilliant as God has made it, it won't take anything forever, right?
Hmm.
It, like anything else, has a limit. It'll redline. And so one night I was asleep, and I was awakened with this just tightening in my chest. It's like this feeling in my chest. And hadn't felt that before, but it was so intense and it wouldn't go away. I was up the whole rest of the night, and I
Hmm.
was feeling it the whole rest of the night. So I slept 4 hours that night, just, and then I'm on my phone, and my wife happened to be out of town. That's why I say that, like, the whole thing was alone. And so I was online thinking like it wasn't stabbing pains, and it didn't fit all the qualifications of a heart attack. And so, and I was reading, I said, well, maybe let me try another site. And I kept reading all this stuff, and there was no direct correlation. And so I said, oh, I'll call someone tomorrow. But, man, I wake up and I get right back into the grind. And so later that afternoon, I kind of was feeling it again. And so I called my doctor, and he was out, but the nurse said, she's like this. She has the voice of this, like, this black Southern grandma, like this commanding, sweet but commanding voice.
Hmm.
And she just said, baby, the good Lord gave you two arms and two legs and one heart. So if I were you, I'd go get it checked out. And so we keep talking, and we're talking, and I'm just engaging in the conversation at this point until she says, and this is what got me. She says, I've been in this, in the health care field for, I forget how many years, 20 years, whatever. And then she says, I notice the body always sends a sign first. It always sends a warning signal.
Mm.
And that got me. I was like, yeah, I gotta do something with this. So because the doctor, this was on I think a Tuesday, and he wouldn't be back in till that Thursday. And she said, so initially she said, oh, just come in Thursday, we'll book you. But as we continue to talk, she says, no, I think you should go to the emergency room today. And man, I remember after that conversation, I literally hung up the phone, and that's where I went.
Mm.
And I remember being in the parking lot. So in the parking lot, I was feeling better. So, by the way, just to make this story even more, unbelievable, I'm vegetarian for about 2 years, drink nothing but water, work out, 3 days at the gym, and I run once a week, and just really try to take care of myself, right? Don't, no fried foods, no processed, try to keep all that stuff out of my body. And despite all of that, right, I still hit that wall.
Mm.
And
So
that's what was bothering me. Go ahead, go ahead.
no, yeah. So yeah, so basically you hit that wall and you knew it. You talked, you got some feedback from the medical professional, and so you go to the hospital, right?
Hmm.
And what happens? So you're in the parking lot.
So in the parking lot, I convinced myself that I was okay. I'm in the parking lot at the emergency room, and I remember turning the car on, going in reverse, and I remember my daughter and my wife called, and they were like, hey, we want to go check out this restaurant or grab some food or something. I was like, yeah, I'll meet you guys over there, because I'm thinking I'm about to jump in here, get a clean bill of health, get out and go meet them to go eat somewhere,
Hmm.
because my wife was still driving back in town. And man, I remember so I finally said, hey, let me just go in here and just get this over with, kind of thing. And
Hmm.
man, I mean, so I go in, and I don't know, within 30 to 45 minutes, they're ordering me a wheelchair and an ambulance, saying I need to get checked into the hospital, man. I
Wow.
was like, what the heck is going
It's
on?
like this is
And I
gonna take a
remember,
lot longer than I thought.
and I remember telling the guy, I mean, some of this, I'm a reveal part of my character that I think works really good in business, but not in a lot of other places.
Mhm.
So the guy is telling me, like, yeah, we just ordered you a wheelchair, and we're going to be getting an ambulance. The cardiologist says he needs to see you like right away. And I'm like, hey man, time out, bro. I said, check this out. I'm vegetarian. I eat clean. I work out. I say, so I don't think I'm supposed to be. And I had told him this several times. So this one
Mhm.
time he says, hey, Mr. Williams, listen, I totally understand what you're talking about. And I even believe what you're saying. But he said, when I look at your EKG and I look at your troponin levels, I just can't let you out of here. So
Mhm.
troponin apparently is this protein that your heart gives off and puts into your bloodstream. So when I took a blood test, my troponin levels were elevated. So troponin, your heart secretes troponin when it's under stress or duress.
Mhm.
And although my levels weren't in the heart attack range, they should be, at my age, it should be zero. And it was
Mhm.
like 0.17, I think it was.
Mhm.
And so it was enough to get their attention. And the EKG, he said the EKG is showing some funny weirdness, whatever. And when he said those two things, I leaned back in my chair and I just went, all right, that it is what it is. So let's just deal with it at this point.
Yeah. So you got the results. They took you to a cardiologist. And so what happened? Did you come out with a clean bill? Did they say it was stress, pressure? Like, what did they say?
That was a frustrating part. They didn't so I do the ultrasound, I do the chest x-ray, and I do the CT scan. Like, so between those three, right, this you pretty much know everything about the heart. The CT scan is even in color and 3D. I mean, it was really cool. But at the end of it, he basically said, the cardiologist says, I remember I can hear him walking down the hallway, and I heard the nurse say, "So what's up with Mr. Williams," or something like that. And I remember him telling her, "He has a stronger heart than yours. We need to get him out of here," or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes in and says, "Hey, this check clean, this is clean, this is what," and he gives me, and now while he's talking, I still feel this stuff in my chest. While he's
Mm-hmm.
telling me I got the best heart ever or whatever, I'm thinking like something is wrong. So I remember asking him like, but no, but I still like something is not right. And he says, "Listen, my job is to rule out the heart, and I can give you 100% accuracy is not the heart. We've done because they had me a stress test book for me where you get on a treadmill
Mm-hmm.
and where you look at the camera inside the artery. I forget what that's called. One of those books, but all the other tests came back so positive. He was like, "There's no need to, look any further." And so I was dismissed with "Here's your prescription." He handed me a prescription for some aspirin and said, "Get out of my hospital, man. I got sick patients here." So I literally got prescribed some aspirin, man, and walked out of the door, which
Wow.
is unbelievable. Not to mention they were serving me pizza and soda and all this. I didn't eat anything the whole time. I was there for like almost 24 hours
Wow.
and overnight. But the weirdest part was just doing the whole thing alone, just no one that So I was taking all these notes on my phone, like what they were giving me and the
Mm-hmm.
frequency and the blood pressure reports, like every hour. I just had my own because I don't know if you guys do the research, man, but a lot of people die in hospitals, man, because
Mm-hmm.
of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a staggering number, like over 250,000 a year, actually.
Mm.
So anyway, I was just kind of tracking those things, and they discharged me with a clean bill of health. And so I didn't. So when I left there, I still didn't know what the problem was.
Wow. So what were some of the things you were feeling like inside? Like you talked about, was it just chest pains? Was it shortness of breath? Couldn't sleep? Was it just, I don't know, anxiety? What were some of these things?
I, so eh, so I know when I'm stressed, I clench my jaw, but the
Mm-hmm.
the feeling in the chest was like this tightening in the chest. And I thought I was doing bench press. So I thought I pulled, and I remember he told me you probably pulled a muscle. You
Mm.
probably pulled the pec muscle, right? And so that was his kind of explanation for it. But I would just feel this shortening. It was never a shortness of breath. It was just this pressure. And then they asked, "Is it like someone standing on your chest?" I'm like, "No, it's not quite that intense. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like pressure. Like you could just feel like something's not right,
Mm-hmm.
right?" I really know how to describe it, but it's not normal.
So how long do you think that you were feeling, maybe not that extreme, but you were feeling something, right? You were just
Mm.
weren't feeling normal. Was this just years that you were pushing through it? Was it just, the 2020? How long do you think you were feeling like this? Ever since you started your business?
No, so
Forever?
the teeth clenching, I would say, but that would come and go, but that would be for some years maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the chest thing would probably be building for about 3 months. I mean, slowly
Mm-hmm.
increasing and getting a little worse over about a 3 month period. And then that night was a climax. I mean, that was kind of scary because I couldn't control it, explain it, or even
Yeah.
share it with anyone.
Yeah. So what was going on like in your mind? Were you super stressed out at work? Was this you had just overwhelmed by so much? I mean, you talked about just maybe this year and the diversity, the election, feeling alone. Was it all related to that, or or was there other things going on before this year that also, have you ever been kind of like just the pressure and the, overwhelmed all the time and never being able to be still?
I think it's a combination. So historically, right, I run hard and fast all the time. I heard this song. I used to like this song. I hate it now, but the song is actually called All Gas, No Break,
Mm.
or that's a key part of the song. And that was kind of describe me, man. All gas, no break, right? Just running and gunning all the time, not getting enough sleep, like 5 to 6 hours a night was normal for me. But mind always going, always solving the next problem, never pausing and never celebrating. Win a big deal, make a big accomplishment, and as soon as the wheels hit the tarmac on that event, the plane lands, boom, jump off the plane, get on the next flight, and go chase another deal. Like both
Mm.
literally and figuratively, just on the move all the time, um, and not really slowing down and appreciating the people in my relationships or even successes in the business. I had a
Mhm.
business coach who said, like, how do you celebrate? Like, I remember this when I knew something was wrong. She asked me, like, how do you like, just chill out and like just take a break and just, oh, I go run. She's like, okay, all right. And she's
You
like,
were
so what kind of,
you still go gas, pressing the gas.
everything, man, was even my chill period was all gas, no break. And she says, "What else do you do?" I said, "Work out at the gym." And what else? And every answer I gave was just a high RPM redlining all the time. And the brain just can't handle that, man. You
Yeah.
can't run hard all day because it doesn't know how to come down. And so what was happening was another thing that started happening is I started waking up at 3 o'clock every night
Mm.
all the time. And sometimes I could fall back asleep and sometimes I couldn't.
Mhm.
And it got worse. I remember I was on my way home one day and I was at a light and next thing I know, a car behind me was blowing the horn because the light was green and I was asleep.
Mm.
And the horn woke me up and I was like, man, what the hell am I doing? Like,
Mm.
what is going on? But even still, I didn't do the math on it. What
Mhm.
do? You just keep charging, man. Just keep pressing, just keep moving.
Yeah.
And that was my life.
Why do you think that you keep charging, keep moving? I mean, what is it about slowing down that is so difficult? Do you think it just becomes normal to you, and that's the way you're wired? You want to achieve, and you want to set goals, and when you set a goal, you want to achieve it. But why is it so hard? Because there's been points of my life where it was easy to chill out. I remember times that maybe I wasn't that motivated, but it was easy just to relax. But I feel like these days it is very difficult to slow down, and if you do slow down and you're trying to chill out, you feel, I don't know, just unproductive, and you're like, oh, I got
Yeah.
to I got to be doing a project. I don't know. But
hmm
why was it so hard for you? Is it just so long?
I think part of it is because I spent some time kind of processing it. I think a part of it is, I think when I was born, I think my dad left when my mom was coming home from the hospital with me. And I think my I always thought my his absence was due to my presence,
Hmm.
right? So she's a single mom, she's a waitress, so we're being raised on tips, man. So I literally lived in like government housing projects and I remember government how trucks would bring day old bread and milk and cheese out to these places. People were lining up getting food, man. I remember those events. I can see it. And so that was life growing up. And I always thought we're going through this because of me. Like
Hmm.
I came, he left. And so I've always struggled with that approval. Am I good enough? Am I valuable, significant? And so I think that running hard, charging all the time is just trying to prove my worth, right?
Hmm.
And to be significant and to make sure that you're not seen but that you're just valued and appreciated because I've never been hugged by him. All the stuff I've done, never said, "Hey, I love you, congratulations," like, and full academic scholarship to
Hmm.
college and won awards and things and high school, college, and even now, and my kids and all that, just never heard any of that. And I think there was something inside just seeking that approval.
Hmm.
And so that's why the push continued.
Mm. So kind of hard charging. You want approval. You want, specifically your father's approval and recognition. Was there ever a time where you did feel like it was enough, that you had, I've accomplished what I've set out to accomplish, and now I'm good. I can relax. There never was a time that ever that came.
No, it wasn't even a, my wife even reminded me. So I, I have this book that my mom gave me when I was, I don't know, middle school or something, high school, I don't remember, but basically it was a book that had like 12 sections, and each section was a year in school. So 12 grades, right? And so each year I would put like awards and certificates and pictures and like my dog. You put all these, it's like a memory book, right? And
Hmm.
so so my senior year, I had wrote in there, and I found this book like 5 years ago. And in my senior year, I had wrote I want to be a computer scientist, go to Texas A&M. I want to work in Silicon Valley because that's where all the tech goodness is. I want a house. I want to be married. Okay, man, all these things I wrote down. And my wife is really looking at, she said, have you seen this book? Like, you are like 17 years old. Here we are 30 years later, and you have done almost everything on this list, right? And so you would think I would grab that book and go, man, awesome, congratulations, let's celebrate our achievement. And I just looked at it and went, yeah, that is kind of cool because it's not like I was referencing that book, but
Hmm.
all those dreams are buried deep inside my heart, and I just kept charging hard to pursue them. And you would think being able to check all those boxes would make you lean back in your seat and take a break, but I just look for the next thing to go accomplish. And I
Hmm.
think that void, that emptiness, and even as a believer, right? I just was still trying to fill that void with another award, another accolade, another form of success.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So you were experiencing all this, and this is very, very fresh. So, you're telling the story. This isn't like it happened years ago, and I know you're still kind of on this journey. So, what are some things that you've done to kind of help alleviate some of these feelings? Obviously, this is a wake up call. You had the warning sign. God gave you the warning sign now, and the next sign could have been dead, right? It could
Sure.
have had a heart attack.
Hmm.
So what are some things that you've done now to help? Do you feel better? Are you still just all tightened up? Where are you?
Man,
Where are you
I made like a 180,
Mm-hmm.
um, for sure. So I eventually find out that all that I went through was from stress and anxiety, which initially kind of surprised me, but when I did an inventory, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because one thing I forgot to mention was that George Floyd incident hit me really, really hard. My wife picked up on it as well,
Mm-hmm.
because I was stopped and had these cops pull out guns and they're running towards my car and all this. I'm on my
Mm-hmm.
way to church, by the way. Just driving to church, ain't in no trouble, never been in any trouble. But and anyway, I heard this term called racial trauma, where you go through something like that, it builds up this fear, this trauma, whatever. And so that all that stuff just came rushing up,
Mm-hmm.
and I was watching all the reports, and I was meeting with some friends to just kind of process through it, and it was really weighing heavily on me. And so anyway, I go through this whole thing, and so on the other side of that, I've I'm doing things I never thought I would do. Number one, so meditation has become a key part of my life. Just the practicing meditation from two perspectives: one, learning about it because I now find it interesting, and then two, just the art of practicing it, just
Mm-hmm.
being calm, being still, not and focusing on nothing, right? And just bringing the RPM down to zero. And my body was like, okay, what is this? We've never been here before, kind of thing. so, so we were just bringing the RPM down to zero and staying there. So meditation is definitely key. The health and fitness piece, I've been pretty good at that. I just continue to do that, but that's always key. Sleep is critical. This watch tracks not only my sleep, but my sleep score as
Mm-hmm.
well, heart rate, oxygen levels, all that. So I'm really serious about getting sleep and even taking naps, which I've never done before. I took like a 2, 3 hour nap over the weekend. and I was just tired. So last night it was 7:45. I just went to sleep. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. That's how
That's
this
good.
works. Because before I would just force my body to do what it just wasn't ready to do. Right.
Yeah.
And so getting a proper amount of sleep, definitely key. I've also started yoga. I do that once a week, 6 a.m. on Fridays, man. And I'm so into it, man. The Friday after Thanksgiving, I was up there 5:50, ready to rock and roll. They weren't even open. They're like, dude, what are you doing up here? So I was ready to go, man. She was fired up when I told her the next day I was there, the instructor, because I don't think she thought I would continue. I'm like the only guy, only black guy, probably the first black guy ever signed up for this yoga class up there. But I'm loving it, man. And she is awesome at what she does. I learned a lot from her just listening to the art of practicing yoga. And like she says, for example, one day she said, hey, one day you might be able to do this move, the next day you may not. Just take what the body gives you. Because my idea is you just force every outcome. It's all about winning everything, right? You just bend that body, make it work. It's like, oh no, that's not how we do it here. If if you could do it that day, go for it. If the body won't, back it off. And so I really appreciated that, though, just learning how to take what life gives you and not force every outcome, because that was kind of how I'm wired. Like, I want that outcome. I'm going to get it and make it happen. It doesn't matter what you got. Stay up late, fly over here, buy this, do that, meet this person, get it and make it happen. And now a good friend of mine also, I think this is a key thing that I learned. You and I actually were talking, and you mentioned the book Sacred Pace, man, and that has been an absolute perspective changer for me. His story almost reads line for line with mine, and the 4 steps to sacred pace. And just, I've watched videos on him. I printed out his worksheet, read. I had the audio book, and I bought the book also because I wanted to just kind of go through and redline and process through it. I learned so much from that book, man. It's been a absolute game changer. Just someone who's kind of basically took my story and turned it into a process, and then how to come out of that like stressful process that the author went through. It's been really insightful for me.
Yeah.
And appreciate you, man, for sharing that.
Yeah, no, that's a book someone recommended to me. It's called The Sacred Pace. So if you guys are tuning in, check out that book. And it's really about, it's a book of faith, but it's really about just slowing down before you make decisions. I'm one that I say yes a lot. And at the time it doesn't seem like a big deal, but as soon as you start to say yes to 2, 3, 4, 10 things, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I know at this season of my life, I have to really be intentional about what I say yes and what I say no to. And I remember I was talking to a mentor of mine, and he said, Brett, your favorite word right now is no. Like, you have to really say no a lot. Like, that's your favorite word. You shouldn't hardly say yes to anything, honestly, with this season of your life that you're in right now. Brian, so here's the question I want to ask. So you're doing yoga, which obviously takes time. You're doing meditation, which takes time. You're taking naps, and you're going to bed at 7:45 p.m. But the entrepreneur hard charger listener right now is like, that's great and all, but like I got a lot of stuff to do. I got to work really hard. And if you start to do all these different things, especially on a daily routine, you don't get anything done. That's what someone maybe is asking. So what do you say to that?
Well, so the naps are on the weekend. 7:45 going to bed happened yesterday. I don't do that all the time, but I do. 9:30 is my bedtime, though. I'll tell you that. And here's the thing, right? We get one life to live, man. I'll tell them, live it how you want to live it. This was what works for me. I wouldn't recommend that lifestyle. I read a story on Elon Musk and like how he's riding hard. I was like, man, it's just a matter of time, right, before you hit a wall. The biology and the science doesn't lie. You can't run hard like that all the time and get away with it. So I would say it's all about priorities, right? Where are your priorities? So for me, I prioritize my health and my family and relationships. I absolutely love business and growing businesses and the science and psychology of sales. I think it's fascinating. It's just that I'm not willing to lose my life or my relationships for it.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. And so I think it all comes down to life experiences, and we're all shaped by our experiences. And, I think you can either learn from them or repeat them.
Mm.
And I'm just choosing to learn from it and make it like that is not, I get to choose my life, like my choices. That's
Mm.
not happening to me again. It's
Mhm.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like I was offered this pretty cool opportunity, this senior executive position for the Silicon Valley company, and I'm like, I mean, I'm interested in it and looking at it very seriously, but I'm not cashing in my life chips for it. It's just not worth it. I'm just
Yeah.
not gonna go back to that lifestyle. Now I understand there are times you have to grind, but man, I was listening to this. So I subscribe to the Calm app,
Mhm.
and they have LeBron James on there, man, and he really, and for you guys who want to, man, check it out, man. Like, oh, that's a good answer to the question. This guy, so NBA, like best basketball player arguably ever, right? He 17 years in the game and he's still balling at a world-class level. Just won another NBA finals, right? Championship, right? And this guy, they asked him, what do you attribute your, 17 years in the league performing at a high level? And he says, sleep. He he gets 8 hours of sleep and a 2 hour nap
Mm.
himself.
Wow.
And he says, I fight for it. I
Mm.
demand it. I am
Mhm.
adamant about it because if you read the book, Why We Sleep, you'll find the value and how we have grossly underestimated the power of sleep. But anyway, I learned from him recently from LeBron James that that's something that he values. And I remember he said during COVID they had like this weird like 1 o'clock game or 2 p.m. game or something, which is pretty early for the NBA, but that's
Mhm.
when the game was scheduled. And he said I still got my 8 hours and a 2 hour nap in even before a 1 o'clock game, and they had to report in to get on the bus at like 10 o'clock in the morning or something like that.
Mhm.
So I think it just all comes down to priority and what you're focused on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna have to get that app. That's the Calm app,
Hmm.
right? And definitely
Hmm.
have to get that. And I think that I have a couple other questions for you, Brian, but I think I actually learned this from one of our mastermind groups. There was like a gentleman, I forget the name, but he was talking about he had gone through some private failures. And, a lot of times we want to publicly succeed, right? We want people to
Mm,
know that we're succeeding. We want to, put on this image that we are very successful, but sometimes we're privately failing, and that can mean a lot of
mm,
different things. We could privately fail in our marriage or as a parent or in our health. And, we put on this persona that everything's okay.
mhm,
Um, and when it's all said and done, he said there is no amount of public success that can replace your private failures, right?
mm,
And I just want to
mm,
kind of, people to listen to that if you are struggling, and, I've had some calls because I've been starting to open up about, I've had some similar experiences to you. And I just had a guy reach out to me last week and feeling the exact same way, like just doesn't feel fulfilled, can't sleep, super stressed out, a lot of pressure. And I'm trying to talk into his life a little bit. And do you
mm.
think that have you seen personally, has anybody else opened up about some of these things, about like, man, like I feel the exact same way,
Mhm.
and they're just not afraid. They're afraid to share it, but they just kind of stuff it in. Like, what have you experienced with other entrepreneurs going through this experience?
Actually, there have been a few folks. Either I spoke at another place and I shared briefly, and a lady came up and shared and wanted to talk later and just said how much it encouraged her because she knew she was going through something, but she didn't know how to articulate it. And so listening to my story helped her just totally, be able to explain specifically what she was going through. But I think this is something guys don't like talking about, right? This is not something when you meet a bunch of entrepreneurs, we don't do public conferences anymore, but virtually, this is just not something we thump our chest and talk about success, right? It's almost like, we're just like the teenagers on IG, right? This is living my best life now. No
Yeah.
challenges, no problems, no issues, right? And I'm just saying, man, I'm done playing that game, man. Because ultimately, and here's the thing, right? I am a better version of myself when I'm rested and calm and practicing yoga and meditation. More focused, more clarity of thought, more energy, more
Hmm.
passion, more in providing more insight. It's just a much, I mean, think about it. Here's one guy redlining all day, every day, stressed out, not working out, running hard. And there's another guy rested, focused, calm, high energy, and high empathy at the same time. I mean, given the option, and we all have this option, or
Hmm.
given the choice, which lifestyle do you want to live? And listen, if you want that hurried red line lifestyle, man, I high five you, brother. Say go for it,
Hmm.
right? I don't want it. You can have it. Because I can, every way to each his own, right? I don't
Yeah.
hate anybody who still wants to run that at that pace. I just can't subscribe to it anymore.
Yeah. I think you said, because you just turned 50, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
about next year.
Next year you turn 50. Didn't somebody tell you one time that the first 50 years are a gift from God, but the next 50 you really got to work for
Man, that's the truth. I love that quote, man. Someone did tell me that, and I think that is the truth. I mean, because think about it, you can do anything, stay up late, man. People, I don't drink, but people they said they used to drink when they were young, and now they have a half of what they did or a quarter, and they can't stand up anymore. I mean,
it. Yeah.
but I think you can still win in this
Hmm.
second stage of life, right? If you
Yeah.
want a second half, if you call it that, I'm a big believer. I even signed up for this. They have these stretch labs out here or stretch zones where
Hmm.
they stretch you and do all these crazy stretches and they
Yeah.
get the and man, my flexibility is like off the chart. And like, I've been inflexible my whole
Me
life.
too.
And it has been, I mean, I can touch the floor standing up now. I've never been able to do that
That's
before.
awesome. It's
So
called a
yeah, so
stretch
anyway,
lab.
yeah, it's
It's
either stretch zone or stretch lab. There's two different franchises depending on where you live.
It's so
And
funny because I started, just by hearing your story, I go to the chiropractor and I enjoy doing a massage every once in a while. But they also, at my massage place, they do extreme or assisted stretching. And I did
yeah,
one a couple of weeks ago. It was kind of
really.
similar, like someone actually, and it
Hmm.
reminded me of my old basketball days. Someone
Hmm.
get a partner out there and they're stretching your legs up. And it
Hmm.
was really
Hmm.
cool. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah, man.
Made you feel so
Yeah,
good.
that's cool to hear. Yeah,
Yeah,
my
for sure.
son is a college athlete, and he said they have trainers and things, but they don't. I said, don't they stretch you guys? He said, yeah, but not like this. Not a
Yeah.
full hour of it. Like
Wow.
it's full on.
How many
Yes, sir.
times a week do you do that?
I do it once a week.
Once a week? Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. No, I love that. So, Brian, before we wrap up today's show, I got just one question because I know this is a personal question I was asking you a couple weeks ago because I was talking about family and we were just talking about as a dad. So I want to talk to the dads out there. And I was starting to go down this path. So I stepped out of my real estate business about 7 months ago, but then I started to add some of these other projects. And again, I was saying yes to these different things. And eventually I was like, man, I got a lot of stuff I'm going to be doing next year, and I was feeling some of the pressure and the overwhelmingness again. And I have 4 kids at home, right? I got a
Hmm.
2, 5, 7-year-old and a 13-year-old at home. And so I got all these different things going on here at the house. And I haven't put a lot of value. I wouldn't say I'm a bad dad by any means, but
Hmm.
right, putting the kids to bed every night, reading them a story, playing out on the trampoline or throwing a ball in the backyard, I haven't. It just sometimes felt the same and mundane. I like change too. And I was like, so I was asking you these questions and I said, hey, I have all these things. I wanted to be a speaker and get on the stage and I wanted to travel and do all these cool things and start this maybe mastermind group but then, should I do all that right now with this season or should I really just like have extreme margin, is what I call it, have extreme margin in my life so I can be available to my family? And I don't know when those special times are going to come, but if I don't have, the availability, I won't be able to capture those moments. And a lot of it for me is just energy. Like if I'm putting all of my energy into
Hmm.
these different
Hmm.
things, like I don't have much energy left. I only have so much, right?
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
and I was asking you that question, so I want you to kind of answer that for us today. To that entrepreneur out there that they're doing their business and they're starting to say yes and they're traveling and they have a hard time being present, putting energy into their family. Like, talk about that and what decision and what choice did you say that you would make, and then what advice did you give me?
Well, I mean, again, right? I think in the end, I heard a pastor once say this. He's down in San Antonio, and he said he used to be the pastor when someone was on their deathbed at the hospital. Not that he would go give the last rites and bring the family together and pray with them. So he said, so he did this for many years. So he said at one point he would just ask the person on their deathbed, like, "Hey, if you could just, I'm just curious, if you could do it all over again, what would you do different?" Just a pretty, you know, asking a nonchalant way. And he said 10 times out of 10, the response was the same.
Mm.
Spend more time with my daughter, spend more time with my wife, spend more time with my kid. I mean, it never changed. The answer
Mm-hmm.
never changed. And so we learned from that. Like I heard the most wisdom you'll ever get is from a man while he's dying, before he dies, right before he dies, because there's nothing, he's got nothing to prove. He's not trying to impress anyone, right? And so you're going to get raw truth. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that truth is that value relationships now while you can. I think
Mm-hmm.
the distraction is the trappings of life and business and money and fame and travel and all this kind of stuff. But I remember we were on vacation with the kids, man, and we were in Orlando. We were supposed to go somewhere else, and like a hurricane came. We had to divert and go, and we ended in Orlando. And so I'm like, cool, we're at Disney. So I'm trying to convince my kids to go to Disney World. So I got my laptop open and I'm showing all the stuff, man. And they're looking over the laptop going, "Dad, they got basketball goals out there and a swimming pool at the hotel we were at." And so they wanted to go do it. So the next day I get the laptop again. It's like, "Dad, now they got it." It was like this Dora the Explorer running around
Mm-hmm.
giving out candy. They wanted to go do that. Man, every day, we're there a week. Every day they just want to hang out, go
Mm-hmm.
find some pizza, go get some burgers. And that basketball goals at this place were like 4 or 5 feet tall, so they can dunk on it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all they want. So they, and my wife and I talked and said, you know what? They just want us. They don't give a rip about Mickey Mouse, man.
Yeah.
They can stay right here at this whole, and we did that the whole, we're in Orlando, man. And all we did that week was hang out at this hotel for 7 days. All the stuff that Orlando has to
Yeah.
offer, from restaurants and entertainment. And so the lesson we took from that is we got to just slow our roll. Let's just hang out with them, just as
Mm-hmm.
kick. And they were younger, but we just said, let's just focus on just being with them.
Yeah.
And they taught us that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were ready to go get on the wagon and just and go hard and go do all this stuff, talking about creating memories. And you know how it is when you go to these places, man. You're standing in line and hot and exhausted, all the
Mm-hmm.
people and you're not creating a lot of memories. But
Yeah.
anyway, that week at the hotel we did. And so when you and I talked, I pretty much just said the same thing, man. I think it's okay to press pause, especially given where I am in my life now,
Mm-hmm.
where my value systems have changed. And there are a lot of guys who will just tell you to go for it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Just go for it. I think we have to start questioning other guys and saying, I had a guy once tell me, he said, before you say yes to a new endeavor, ask yourself, what impact will it have on your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let that be part of your decision making process.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically we just look at the upside from a business perspective, as opposed to asking what impact will it have on the family, because that business deals come and go. Obviously, our wife and kids don't. So that's all I'll share with that.
Yeah. 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 No, thanks for sharing, Brian. I really appreciate you just being open on the show today. You know, this show is really just about real entrepreneurs, real men, real women, just kind of sharing. And I just appreciate you opening up your heart today. And so that listener out there that is starting to hear, they're feeling a lot of the same way. They have a hard time being present at home. They are feeling some anxiety, some stress. And do you have just kind of one last word for them before we wrap up?
Man, I would just say take an inventory, you know, and if you're struggling to do that, I have a very dangerous, risky, and uncomfortable request of you. And that is just ask your wife and kids, how am I doing
Mm,
on being available for you guys? How am I doing?
wow.
I would keep it that simple. They know how to answer it. They won't need much more help than that. And based on their answer, I would just ask you to consider making some adjustments
Mm,
and not assume that we're going to get another tomorrow with them. To not be so arrogant to think that there's going to be time later.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's a good question. So if you guys are hearing that, please do that. I'm going to go do that today. So that sounds good. Well, this is a wrap with Brian Williams. Brian, I appreciate you so much, man. Just opening up for our audience. And just thank you so much. God bless you and your family.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Always enjoy, man.
Thank you so much for checking out the Brett Snodgrass channel. If you like this video, please slam on that like button. And if you really like it, then subscribe to our channel here. And remember to leave us a comment below, and I'm going to try my hardest to reply to all the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is why I do what I do. Every single week, I come out with content that focuses on success, freedom, and living out your purpose. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.